Kia ora whanau. I want to do more explanation on tools today. Give you the whole selection of hand tools this week. Next week we're gonna do electric power tools. So in Syntropy we need to deal with a lot of vegetation. We need a lot of turnover of biomass. It means we have to cut, drop. That's our main job, that's our fertilizer, it's everything. So when we start out, we might get away with just a little hand sickle like that. Like this is a rice harvest sickle, a Japanese rice harvest sickle. And this is a sharpening stone that you use for size. So when you do sharpen them, you sharpen them every day before you start work. You do that. And then these sickles, that's a Japanese one, and that's a Chinese rice harvesting sickle. These give you two options. You can hold a bundle of rice or grass, whatever you're cutting, and do a pull cut like that. So you try to get it along the blade, and then you have it in your hand. There's that advantage. But if you want to cut a lot of grass fast, then you don't want to have the hand in the way. Put it away and go and do that. And these sickles can do that. Contrary to these garden sharks, as they are called, they also come in a smaller version. We like these shorter ones because they go into our work pouch. So these have teeth, and they can only be used holding what you want to cut and then use it like a saw. You cannot hack with them, you destroy them, and you have to tell your woofers about that. And this one is rattling because somebody must have been using it to beat on something. So you don't do that with these sickles. Neither do you sharpen them much at all, but after a while, especially when you cut thin bamboo, as we do for the goats, the teeth start getting damaged, and then you go to the opposite side of where the teeth are visible. So you go to the smooth side, yeah, and that side you can sharpen that, but it's a bit awkward. It's not really that common to sharpen them, but you can do that once in a while. Now it's sharp again, yeah, but eventually you will wear those teeth down, and hopefully by the time you have lost it already. So they come with different lengths of handles, different lengths of blades, so you get more. So great for trimming flaxes, cutting elephant grass. Sugar cane gets a bit challenging with them already. We move up in our cutting power. So this one here is a 12-inch Tramontina machete, and that one here maybe for beginners is a good size, but you wouldn't use it to clear scrub or take branches of trees and so on. You could use it to cut some grass and cut flax, elephant grass, sugar cane, these sort of things. I use that one actually only to go in the forest to have something with me if I need it. It's shorter one. It doesn't clunk into my legs as much as that one here, which is the length I most use for pruning. So it's 14 inch, so it measures 14 inch from the beginning of the grip. 14. And when you buy them, you can order them from Blade Master in Auckland. They cost about 30 bucks or so, and I think it's a good price for them. So they come from Brazil, and that's how you get them. And you can see the edge down here. You think it is sharp, you go always, oh yeah, it's sharp, and you can cut yourself all right with it, but that's totally useless as a sharpening for actually doing work with it. So people would buy those and think, oh, sharp, all right, start working with it and get terribly disappointed, because what happens when the cutting edge is only sharp at the tip, but then has quite a wide angle, so it is quite a wedge shaped, and they do that so they can transport them, they can ship them without getting damaged by hitting other machetes. But what we need to do then is extend that hump further down, so we get, instead of 3-4 millimeters of a sharpening here, we extend it down to maybe 10 millimeters and have a thinner wedge, and that way we are not chopping, we are cutting. Yeah, so we are approaching more something like a scythe. That's more like a razor blade rather than a hatchet. And the difference that it makes is, say if that was a green branch and I use a superficially sharp machete like this, you would hit it and we just push the branch away. It wouldn't penetrate, right? Whereas if we take that one, and you can see in comparison, yeah, we don't have a hump here, we have totally taken it down, yeah, and every time we sharpen it, we don't just go for the sharpness at the point, we take down that hump again, because as we reduce the front by sharpening it, we have to also reduce the hump again, otherwise we end up having a hatchet again. Yeah, and you can also see other changes we made. We take the tip off, yeah, so we just take a hacksaw to it or an angle grinder, take the tip off. It makes quite a difference of how the blade swings. What we want to achieve with the machete is that we have a very high speed of the tip of the machete. So when we swing it, we give it a flick like that. We don't go like that, we give it a flick like that. So we increase the speed of the tip of the machete, because that speed again avoids that the branch is just going back with the machete. So if we go slow, that happens. But if we go really fast, then the inertia of the branch is strong enough that we chop through it rather than pushing the branch out of the way. That makes a clean cut. It makes a sure cut. You don't lose your temper by hitting it 10 times and it doesn't get through, and the next one goes into your knee. So yeah, having a super sharp machete, sharpened in the right way, and having it ergonomically so it can get that speed, and getting that, develop that flick over time. You won't get it immediately, but over time you get that flick like a whip, and that increases the speed at the end of the machete. So you try to cut mostly in that area here, yeah, in order to get the maximum a swing out of your machete. And then you see we put rubber here. The reason for that, it gives you a more secure a grip here, so you can hold it like that. If you hold it like that, it's sort of quite annoying, and too sharp here and everything. It starts getting, you get sore holding it like that, and you want to do that sometimes. You want to sometimes change the length of how you hold the machete, yeah. Sometimes you want to just make quick flicks, taking little branches out, you hold it like that. Most of the time I actually use it like that. Sometimes you use it like that, as it's designed for, and sometimes you have a strong branch and you actually want to hold it like that. So it gives you these different possibilities, and it also stops your machete flying out of your hand, especially when you got wet hand and you're sweating and so on. So that's how we do it. And then we try to have a holster for our machetes according to their lengths, and that means you don't have to walk around with a machete. You might fall and stab yourself. So the ideal length of a machete, if you buy one, you take it with your fingers over here against the grip, and then the blade should end before it gets to your elbow pit here. Yeah, that's how I would choose a machete. So I'm staying below that, and depends what jobs you do. If you do some heavy clearing, take down little tea trees and so on, if you want to do that by hand, you want the longer ones, but usually for pruning work a length like that is fine. So sometimes we have secateurs here, but to be honest, it's probably one of our least used tools that we have here. I know some people garden just with secateurs. We garden pretty much without secateurs, except for when we do the annual pruning of our deciduous fruit trees. Then of course we do use them, and we use all of our saws as well. But apart from that, in our subtropical food forest, we hardly ever use secateurs. We do everything ideally with a machete, because machetes make the cleanest cut. Anything that uses scissors, secateurs, or these snippers here, squeeze the branches, and that makes the healing process harder for the plant, so you invite more fungal diseases into it. A saw frays the cut, the same, not as bad as a secateur, but it's still bad, whereas the machete with a fast cut is the cleanest and is the easiest to heal. Only problem with machetes, if you're a beginner, it's hard to find the right spot to cut through, to end up with the butt in the right direction as you would do with the secateur. So that's the only problem. So for delicate trees, expensive trees, you want to use still secateurs or loppers, but anything else that's not quite as precious, try to use a machete. It's so much faster. And then don't forget, whenever you use any of those tools, you want to wear a good glove. These ones here made for oil rigs, and they're Kevlar lined, so they're cut resistant. The cushions here, they're thick enough to stop zones of gores and flame trees most of the time. Yeah, you don't want to grab hard on them, but usually we don't feel any thorns coming through these guys. Right, sharpening. So when you buy them from a shop and they look sharp and they're not, if you start on the stone, it's gonna take you forever. So this case here, you go on a belt sander, or you use an angle grinder with a sanding disc, and you take that shoulder down. You could even after a while put a whiteboard marker over it and see where you're sharpening, so you're not sharpening at the front only, you sharpen a bit further back. And don't overheat it. You don't want to get the metal blue, because then you lose the hardness. So another thing, don't fall into the trap of getting one of those cane knives that have this sort of hook coming out in the back. No matter what you see in films, they are awkward. They're too heavy in the front. So this one here needs just a little bit of resharpening. You know, when you work, you sometimes hit a stone or something, they get a bit dull, and then you do sort of little circle motions, and you see I hold it quite flat. Yeah, I'm not doing quickly getting, no, that doesn't work. It has to be fairly flat. Otherwise, we end up with a little hatchet rather than a laser blade. Also a good idea to wear a glove when you do that. I could get stuck my finger in there and cut myself. So you might as well put your glove on already when you sharpen. That is the finest bench grinding stone I could find. You could get any sharpening stone, but important is that you fix it on a surface, otherwise it just wanders all over the place, and you can hurt yourself easily. So yeah, so you see that's the area that we sharpen. We don't just sharpen the front of it. So what are we doing with these tools? Well, you might have seen them in martial art videos, but we use them for Kikuyu, or more specifically, we used to use them for Kikuyu. Nowadays we use Titonia and we don't worry about that. But if you want to quickly take down a thick fleece of Kikuyu or other tangly things like nasturtiums or whatever, and you don't have or don't want to use a weed eater, you could use one of those sickles. Or if you don't have these, you can use your machete. For mowing, you should actually use a longer machete. That's where longer machetes come in. And then you go down on the ground. You have this wooden hook here. We found one of the best trees that gives you these sort of fairly open hooks and quite strong is Inga bean. They make a lot of hooks like that. It's not as easy to find as you think. So yeah, that's what you need. And then you go down and you hook into your grass, your Kikuyu or nasturtiums or so, you hook into them, and then you come with the machete and go underneath like that. And then you put it away to the side. You hook again, cut underneath, put it aside. Hook, cut underneath, put aside. So you're using your left hand to clear the area. So when you deal with messy vegetation, it is very important that you constantly clean the site you're working in. And that is one of those things that makes a weed eater a bit annoying, because it doesn't give you that option very easy. But working with these two things, you can do the chick, chick, chick. And you see, I'm having my left foot forward. I'm right-handed with my sharp tool. I put my left foot forward because that puts it out of risk zone. Yeah, I come along here like that. It's highly unlikely that I hit my right leg. That would be a hell of a swing. However, if I would have my right foot forward and I go like that, I could hit here, right? So left foot forward makes your work much safer. And you do that as well when you're working on something else like that. You cut away like that. If you do that, you're more likely to hit yourself like that. We go into saws. So let's say first of all we get the folding one. So again, that is in our pouch. So these are silkies. Yeah, they lock in nicely. You want to go for the bigger teeth, because if you have soft woods like faux, flame tree, and you have small teeth, they clog up and it's really hard to cut. So it's for those softer woods that you want these bigger teeth, and it makes a faster cut as well. Yeah, these things are really mean if they jump out of your cutting and you go on your hand. So really important to have your glove. Think about it. You might be hanging on a tree branch and you cut it and it jumps on your hand, and you might even let go and fall off the tree. So having a good glove has to go with a saw like that. And especially if you go for these guys here, again, it's a silky fox, and we select for the biggest teeth on it. Makes a fast cut. We also selected for the longest blade and curved, so when you're up on the tree you can do some nice long cuts, and it doesn't take long to get through a branch. When you're working in a tree, you want to be fast and efficient and safe, so you don't want to spend too much time sawing on a branch. So they have to be in good shape. And then when you do work on a tree higher up, you can do a bit of snipping with these telescope pickers. They are pickers, not pruners. Yeah, you can do the odd snipping, or if you do harvest something like Inga beans or tamarellos or something, you might do a bit of a pruning job at the same time as you harvest fruit. But these are not pruners, they're just pickers, and they have this grabber here, so when you pick something it actually holds onto it, so it doesn't just drop off. Yeah, but they are not secateurs, and you can extend them all right. Yeah, so you get get quite somewhere. You see? So I grabbed that. If that was a fruit like an inga bean or so, we can bring it down into a basket, or avocados, anything like that. So we can do small snipping jobs, but it's not a pruner. And then we have this guy here. It's original a cacao harvester from Brazil. So it cuts pods off the stem by pushing it up into the tree or by hooking it back out. So there's cutting by pulling and cutting by pushing. We use it actually almost exclusively for taking dry banana leaves off the plant. We like to take older leaves off bananas, A, because they bring upon senescence into the system, and B, our plantings are really dense. We don't want anything up there that is not doing photosynthesis but creating shade on other plants. That's what we don't like. So we are quite onto taking banana leaves off as soon as they get yellow, just to improve the overall sun capture of our food forest. Yeah, and on the ground it turns into mulch. That's where it belongs to when it is old. And at the same time, you could use that for some small branches. Go up, for instance, flame trees, take leaves off if we find they're too dense, and so on. So you can do a bit of pruning with it, but yeah, not up to much diameter. This one here is a pruner. Yeah, so this is a telescope pruner from Wolf Garden Tools, and it has a pulley transmission, so it has actually quite a lot of force on it. And it also comes with a nice telescopic extension, so we can get 3-4 meters out of that. Now this one here, we spend a bit of extra to get this string recoil mechanism. Yeah, so this is the grip you lock in, gives you quite a power to pull on with that grip, and this one here takes the excess string back in the casing, which is really worth it. Otherwise, when you change the length of the telescope, you constantly have meters of string running around your knees and you trip over it and whatnot. So having that is a really good idea. Yeah, so this is our pruner. Of course, you can also put a saw onto it, so you have a telescope saw. I mean, this one here gets branches like this easily. Anything bigger than that, you use a... Ouch! You use a telescope saw. Yeah, you can put that on. However, we hardly use that, because what happens is when you're a few meters up with your telescope, you start cutting and it jumps, and you start the next cut and it jumps and it starts. So as the branch wiggles and your telescope wiggles, the whole thing becomes quite unmanageable. So we do have an old telescope petrol pruning saw, which we sometimes use. We try not to, because it's petrol and it stinks and makes a lot of noise, but for some problem jobs we use that, and we sometimes use that, but yeah, they are not that nice to use. They're quite frustrating. And we have other attachments for harvesting fruit with that guy. So here's a picking basket for apples, and then we have a homemade picker for figs and avocados. So you put that on our device here. Yep. Yeah, and we get fruit in, and then we twist it and it cuts through the stalk. So it works pretty well for avocados, and it works for figs. So we sometimes load it up with 5 figs. That gets a bit messy, but for drying or for making jam, it doesn't matter. So we pick by hand for the market, and we use that to get the ones that we can't reach from the ground. So we have this telescope tool with 1, 2, 3, 4 attachments. Yeah, it's cherimoya season, and we have this telescopic picker from Clifton Country, and you can grab and lock in, bring it down if you want. It totally revolutionized cherimoya picking for us. Otherwise we use that secateurs-like snipper picker, but the cherimoyas are really tight against the branch. It's really hard to do that. It's okay for tamarillos and avocados, but not for cherimoyas. So for cherimoyas you need a grabber like that. Yeah, so yeah, that's how we do it. And next week we're gonna look at power tools, electric of course. See you then.